Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm very excited to bring you a review for the new vintage Beast Wars Transformers Rattrap. Rattrap here is essentially a reissue of the original basic class toy from the original Beast Wars toy line. And he's done up in packaging, which is a somewhat faithful recreation of the original packaging. There are, however, some pretty key differences here. And the toy itself, while the original mold has had some color changes from the initial release, much like all of the other figures in this vintage Beast Wars line. Now, personally, that's not a change I'm very fond of. I very much would have preferred the original color uses, seeing as this is supposed to be a vintage reissue line. They mostly kept the colors the same for the G1 reissues, and for some reason they decided to just redeco all these guys. Not a fan of that approach at all. Because if you wanted to basically get the originals you missed out on or you don't have anymore, these aren't going to be exactly that. That being said, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Rattrap's packaging. The instructions and the tech specs are already on the back of the packaging, so we'll view that when we look at the card. But then we'll see Rattrap himself in both his Beast and Robot modes. Naturally, I'll be doing plenty of group shots and comparisons today. And then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So as I said, Rattrap comes in a loose recreation of his original packaging. Now, his card is much bigger than the original Rattrap toys, and that's because the original toy was a basic class toy, which is the smallest size class at the time, right below Deluxe. And they were about $6-7 or so. Well, this toy is being sold to us as a Deluxe class, which is really not a great value, considering modern Deluxes are like $22-23, so he costs almost 4 times what he used to. And I'm assuming they did that purely because the basic size class no longer exists, and they really didn't want to have to make this guy, his own separate price point or anything. They just want to be able to throw him in cases with Cheetor. So we're getting him as a Deluxe, and you're going to pay Deluxe prices for him. That may be a deal breaker for you, may not. Me personally, I chose to get this guy because I don't have any version of the original Rattrap mold. So I'm willing, begrudgingly, to put forth the money to pay for this guy just so I can get some version of that. Because it's a lot cheaper than just buying a mint condition Rattrap on the secondary market, So I've just come to terms with the fact that I'm paying a lot more for this thing than I should. Anyway, the packaging, despite being much larger, is pretty faithful to the packaging art of the original toy. You got Rattrap's original artwork here. He's got some odd, flaming fist thing going on, so I guess he's, moonlighting as One Punch Man. And one thing that's pretty cool, and some of the younger collectors may not really be aware of this, his packaging bubble here that the toy is actually in is significant. It's what we called a rocky bubble, because the first batch of Beast Wars toys that came out had bubbles that were in this very rough, rocky shape to go with the general aesthetic of the toy line. And then in later waves and later repacks, it was changed to just a plain smooth bubble. So the rocky bubble toys command a higher price on the secondary market because they're older, they're a little more rare. So it was really cool for them to recreate that for this toy. I dig that. Here, obviously get the character's name. Over here you get quick attack action, because like most of the original basic class toys, he's got a spring-loaded transformation. Pretty neat. Of course, this is multilingual packaging nowadays, so it's written in several different languages. It says, Rat turns into robot spy. So even before they came out with the show, Rattrap was designated as a spy-type character. You get the Kenner logo, which is a really nice touch. Right? Kenner has, since been bought out by Hasbro right before they started making Beast Wars. So the Beast Wars toys were marketed under the Kenner brand. And even though Hasbro doesn't typically use Kenner anymore, they still own the rights to it, so they tend to bring the logo back for their more retro toys, like the Beast Wars and some of their Star Wars stuff. So it's a nice touch, really brings me back. Up here, you get your little packaging blurb for Beast Wars. It says, with biogenetic engineering, the Transformers have created a perfect cybernetic fusion between ferocious animals and mechanical technology. The result, heroic Maximals versus evil Predacons. Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know, the original kind of story bible of Beast Wars was that it was a continuation of Generation 1. And these characters were the Autobots and Decepticons, basically just taking on new forms. So like Optimus Primal was Optimus Prime and Beast Megatron was G1 Megatron. And then that idea pretty much got dropped entirely when the show came about because they reimagined it. And honestly, it ended up being for the better. It made for a very, very cool and interesting show. Right over here, you get the instructions for the toy, because they used to just print them on the card back for the... I think it was up to Mega Class they did it? Maybe not. No, Mega I think had paper instructions. I think it was just Basic and Deluxe Class had the instructions on the card back. So you can clip and save. And this really brings me back, because Beast Wars was still pretty current when I really, really got into collecting Transformers way back when. And I went and just bought like a ton of Beast Wars and Beast Machines toys, so I have all these fond memories of clipping all these out. Alright, but the transformation is very simple. Like, you literally just lift the little armature that the rat tail is connected to, and it just flips everything out the way it's supposed to. And then you just kind of straighten the arms out. You can pull the secret weapons out from the little skin flaps of the rat, and then put the weapons together to form his blaster. And now over here, we get the tech specs, and this is where the multilingual packaging really hurts it the most. You still get the secret weapon locations called out, right? Inside the rat's hind legs, which is cool. You got the little diagram of it. But then here, when you get to the flavor text, it's greatly, greatly shortened from the original text because they have to fit 5 different languages on here. And personally, I hate that. I really, really do. To me, that detracts so much from this packaging and really breaks the illusion that this is the original packaging. And it's an issue I've had with the Motu Origins toys, which are released with multilingual packaging, is that they take out all the flavor text on them. The mini comics they come with don't even have dialogue, it's just pictures. So yeah, I get it's a cost-saving maneuver, but it really hurts on the consumer end because it makes the packaging far less interesting. So anyway, his new flavor text is: scouring city streets for Predacon enemies, Rattrap maintains his strength by feeding on grunge and grime and any wretched refuse he may encounter along the way. That's pretty gross. Apparently, Rattrap was known for being a trash eater. And then another change they made is that they no longer have the classic tech spec stats. Where I used to have like strength, endurance, intelligence, speed, rank, firepower, all that. They've shortened it down to just 4. And they've replaced the actual terms with just symbols. So you get strength, intelligence, speed, and firepower, or as newer toys would call it, fire blast, which was stupid. So he's only got a strength of 6, intelligence of 7, which I think that's selling Rattrap a little short. Very clever guy. Speed of 8 and a firepower of 6. So not the highest stats, but then again, you know, the smaller characters tended to not be very powerful. And the bigger you got, the higher those stats seem to rise. So overall, despite the compromises made to save some money on Hasbro's part and be able to use the same packaging for every corner of the world, it's still a really cool thing to have. And Rattrap does still look really nice in this packaging. Part of me wants to just leave him in there because it looks so neat, but I'm not an inbox collector, so let's go ahead and open this guy up. Okay, now we can get a good look at Rattrap in his beast mode. And you can see it's pretty simple. Just this pudgy little rat that has very long, sharp fangs, because that was the thing with Beast Wars, is, you know, whatever their beast mode was, whether it was, you know, like a monkey, a rat, anything like innocuous, they just always had big old sharp teeth, because they had to make them cool. So, yeah, the teeth don't make any sense, but it makes them look dangerous. Almost kind of looks like a little Wolverine. But articulation in this mode is very limited. Pretty much the only thing that really moves is his feet that are on ball joints, though because the legs don't move, moving the feet around doesn't accomplish a whole lot. They are all on ball joints, so that's pretty cool. And then the underside is just not hiding anything at all. They didn't even try back then. They're just like, here you go, robot stuff underneath. And really, all the basics were like very nearly the same toy in a lot of ways. They pretty much included, you know, some sort of a back-mounted spring-loaded lever, whether it was like the tail or the head or whatever. And then when you lift it, like the beast would just kind of like splay open like a book, and then the robot would just kind of swing down. So very similar in transformation. But they also had a lot of personality and were really cool. They were also really, really good at having beast mode weapon storage. And in Rattrap's case, lift the legs out of the way for a sec, you can see the two halves of his rifle are stored in his hind legs there. And that was just the norm back then. And it was something that I always thought was really cool. Like, as far as gimmicks go, I think the beast weapon storage was one of the best and one of the least intrusive gimmicks out there. And it's something that really has become a bit of a lost art in recent years. And I will definitely be touching on that, because it's kind of one of my major gripes with modern Transformers design. They kind of did away with the subtlety of weapon storage and typically just slap the weapons on top or on the side of whatever their alt mode is, whether it's a vehicle, an animal. And I'm not a fan of that approach. I'm really not. I used to find it very clever when they would find, really interesting ways to hide their weapons away or get them to blend in. And now the solution is usually just slap it on the outside. I don't like it. To help hammer home that point, here is a group shot with the two most previous releases of Rattrap's like regular form, right? Like non-Transmetal, non-Beast Wars. So on the right, you get the Thrilling 30 Generations Rattrap, which was a deluxe, unlike these two. And then on the left, we get our newest one, and the smallest one, the Kingdom Core Class Rattrap. And it's interesting how he jumped around in size. He went from a basic size toy to a pretty good sized deluxe, one that's kind of too big for being Rattrap, to a little teeny tiny Core Class. And sadly, this tiny Core Class toy costs more than this guy did. I mean, now that he's being sold as a deluxe, he doesn't. But yeah, you definitely feel like you're just not getting a whole lot for that $10 these days. Now, of course, size is not everything, so I want to be fair to the newest Rattrap, and we'll get a good look at their robot modes where all the posability kicks in. Because really, these two, they're both pretty much bricks. Like, aside from some ball-jointed feet, they don't really have anything in the way of articulation. This guy is actually a lot more articulated. His mouth moves, you can get him to stand on his hindquarters like in the TV show, and he's got a flexible tail with like a wire inside of it. So, but he's a deluxe, so it's kind of cheating, right? He's got a lot more room and engineering to play with. So I won't hold his engineering against the old one. However, I do feel, just going by the beast mode, not a whole lot has improved in all that time. They're both basically just bricks that look like a shell of a rat. Except this time, like I was griping about, the weapon storage is just right there on the outside. I can't even call it storage. He's just got a gun on the side of his leg. Like, that's it. That's not very robots in disguise of him. So I will say that despite the fact that this is not a very accurate looking rat, I think the original toy's beast mode is just better. It's cooler looking for sure. One of my biggest criticisms of the Kingdom Rattrap's beast mode is he doesn't look like a rat. He looks more like a harmless little mouse. He doesn't have that size factor. He doesn't have that typically, bigger head that rats have compared to mice. The Thrilling 30 captures that a lot better. Again, it's stylized because he's meant to look like the CGI model more than anything. But these two, like when I look at them, I would think immediately that is a rat. If I were to look at this, not knowing what it is, I'd say, oh, that's a cute, tiny little mouse. It's not. That is supposed to be a big old garbage-eating rat. But it doesn't look like it. So I'm honestly going to have to give, the beast mode to the 25-year-old toy here. Because I just don't think Kingdom really does it for me. To help demonstrate just how cool the old basic class toys were and how well they hid their weapons away, I've taken out a few of my own, personal original Beast Wars toys. So you get your Bat Optimus Primal and Alligator Megatron from the 2-pack, which, fun bit of personal trivia, my first Beast Wars toys, the first ones I ever owned, was this 2-pack. Now, these aren't the original copies I owned. Those were lost to time. But this was the first I ever had. And in fact, I knew nothing about Beast Wars when I spotted these in the store, and I thought they were a total Transformers knockoff. I really did. My young self thought these were just like a pretender to Transformers and thought I was getting knockoff toys. Who knew these were actually the new official Transformers? I just had no idea. And then over here on the right is another basic class guy, Armadillo, who apparently they've lost the mold of this guy, which is why he hasn't seen any re-release in a long time. So that's a shame. Hopefully, if they want to keep reissuing these Beast Wars toys, they could find a way to reverse engineer his mold and re-release him, because he's one of the cooler basic class toys out there. So yeah, you can see they all work the same way. They'll have, you know, some sort of spring-loaded gimmick. When you like pull the lever up, they start transforming, all that. And then here, you can see how well they conceal their weapons. Megatron's weapon just is his tail, right? And then it attaches from his back, flips out a barrel. Optimus is not quite as good. His swords are underneath his wings, but they blend in. They look like part of the wing. And then Armadillo, his weapons are literally his back legs. Like, these hind legs come off and they turn into a mace weapon and a blaster. So, I mean, they were really creative with this stuff. And I hate seeing that art go away of parts of the Beast Mode becoming the weapons. That's one of the coolest things about the Beast Wars toys, right? They were something really weird and very sci-fi, where, you know, you can have a cheetah who's like actual like guts, like intestines, become a gun. Like, it was awesome. It was very 90s. And that art is just lost now. And some people might say, like, well, yeah, but, you know, the weapon storage might compromise the toy, right? You might get, like, some kibble showing from the weapon. And it's like, okay, yeah, maybe? But I have to ask, how is, like, kind of, sort of being able to see the weapon parts on his legs worse than just having the gun attached to his leg? Like, is that better? I don't think so, personally. And I really hate that they, for the most part, don't really bother trying to hide weapons away anymore. You get some exceptions, right? Like Earthrise Optimus Prime, his gun folds up pretty well into the back of his truck mode. Though I still wouldn't really call it hidden. You know, it's something I'd really like to see come back, especially since they're finally revisiting Beast Wars characters again. Now here's a fun little group shot of the evolution of Rattrap's Beast Mode. So on the left, we have our original toy. Then in the middle, we have the Transmetal Rattrap figure. This is specifically the 10th anniversary version, but it is very close to the original release. Also, want to add just a very awesome toy in its own right. Transmetal Rattrap was just phenomenal. And then we get the not quite so great Beast Machine's Rattrap, his techno-organic form, which was actually a Mega class, something similar to today's modern-day Voyager class. So it's funny how he kept going up in size classes as he evolved, at least in the toys. In the show, he stayed more or less the same size. Beast Machine scale was nuts. It was all over the place. You had a mega-size Rattrap, but a deluxe-size Optimus Primal, but an ultra-size Night Scream, and it was a bizarre toy line. But yeah, we get just this really nice look at how the character's toys evolved over the years. And I will say personally, Transmetal Rattrap is hands down my favorite version of the character. Beast Mode is just completely awesome looking, and the Robot Mode is basically the regular Robot Mode, but cooler in every way. Okay, now it's time to do our transformation of Rattrap, and it's going to be one of the quickest transformations I've ever done. So, like I said, you take his tail, you just lift it up, swing everything into place, and most of him is already transformed. And then the last thing you have to do is just pop his fists free from these little 3mm pegs on the underside of the Beast Mode. They help keep the arms in place so they're not flopping around in the Beast Mode. And that's it. That's Rattrap's Robot Mode right there. And it's very recognizable. You know, his Rattrap is one of the characters whose show model diverged the least from the source material. And, you know, overall, it works, right? This very much just looks like the character. You don't have to second guess it. You can tell exactly who it's supposed to be right from the get-go. His proportions are a little wonky compared to the show model. Like, the Beast Mode head ends up being huge on him. Kind of makes the rest of his body look a little small by comparison. Now, mine has somewhat loose ball joints on the knees. And because he's back heavy, it makes him want to fall back. So I got to pose him with the feet splayed out a little bit and, you know, the right weight distribution just to help out with that. And I don't know how much of an issue that was on the original toy, how loose the ball joints were. This could just be from mold degradation, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's the Robot Mode. The little tail trigger thing hangs off quite a bit more than I'd like in the back. I wasn't aware of just how much that stuck out till I actually got this thing in hand for the first time ever. But he still looks really good overall. Now for the weapons, they're stored right in here. and they're kind of a pain to get out. They're wedged in there pretty good. So you might want to get a fingernail or a tool or something, gently pull them out, but here it is. And instead of being two separate weapons, they're two halves of a rifle. So you just slide this one piece into the other, have them wield it. You do either hand, but go with the standard right hand that most Transformers use, even though I'm a lefty, a dirty lefty. All right, look at that. How cool does he look? Like, it looks like a proper Rattrap figure. And again, you don't even have to guess who that's supposed to be. The show model was much more faithful to him than it was a lot of the characters. Of course, now I can't get him to stand up. Boy, he is back heavy, isn't he? Jeez. Come on, man. There we go. Back away slowly. So, yeah, he looks very cool. He, works as the pint-sized, smooth-talking little scout that he is. And overall, I just really dig the design. He always had, to me, a very interesting design, because he turns into a rat, which you would think is not, supposed to be very cool or intimidating looking. But something about his robot mode, like, Rattrap just kind of reeks of coolness. Even though he's got, like, the buck teeth going on, he has just such an interesting design. Now, why they decided to give him a brain-like pattern on the top of his head, we'll probably never know. I don't know why somebody's like, hey, he should have something that looks like exposed brains on his head. I don't know, but it is a pretty iconic look for the character. So it's just kind of here to stay. Okay, going back to group shots, we have our other two standard form Rattraps in their robot modes. So again, Kingdom on the left, Thrilling 30 on the right. And the size disparity continues. Thrilling 30 is still the biggest by far, and then Kingdom is still a good deal smaller than the original toy. Now, the disparity between these two shrinks a little bit, at least, when you consider just height. And overall, I do think that the Kingdom Rattrap has a much sleeker robot mode. Where he does fail in the Beast mode, he comes out looking like a much more functional robot this time around. Now, I say looking like, there is one big problem with this Rattrap that we covered in his review. The shoulders, the way that they're done is that the ball joint is on the back of the shoulder. That severely limits the range of motion of his arms. Whereas this guy, they're mounted the standard way, with the ball joint just kind of pointing outward and then the arm latching onto it from the side. So he gets a much better range of motion in his arms. Another thing I don't like about the newest toy is that they didn't give him his traditional robot mode legs. Like, this is what they originally looked like, and this is what the show based his legs off of, where they were mostly metallic with toes that kind of resembled a rat's toes. And they managed to carry that over here pretty well when they redid him for Thrilling 30, but when they did Kingdom, they just made his feet the hind rat feet. And to me, that's a big shame, because it takes a toy that's otherwise very screen accurate looking in this mode, and they just kind of drop the ball when they get to this part. So that, to me, is very unfortunate. In the end, however, I do have to say that Kingdom Rattrap, despite his flaws, does have a better robot mode than the original toy. The original one, while cool and very recognizable as Rattrap, he is a very back-heavy, very just kind of simple toy with a big, ugly, just armature sticking off his back. So he's not perfect, right? He does suffer the most in robot mode and doesn't come off looking as sleek as some of the other basic class Beast Formers. Speaking of those basic class toys, here they are again. From left to right, Optimus Primal, Megatron, and Armadillo. And you can see what I mean about the backpack. Rattrap has a massive backpack. And while Optimus's wings, that you could call a backpack, are very wide, they're much thinner. A lot of Rattrap's mass and his bulk is on his back, which does make him a lot harder to stand up than any of the three of these guys. They're much more streamlined looking. So that is one thing that is unfortunate about the toy. He's not the best basic class Transformer out there in the Beast Wars toy line. He does the same formula that these guys do, spring-loaded, tail-based transformation, flip-out weapons, but he doesn't really do them as well. Also, if you're wondering, The Bat Primal here, yes, he was not so subtly based off of Batman, because Kenner owned Batman toys at the time, so they kind of had a thing for Batman. And for our final group shot, we're going to do one more evolution lineup with the robot modes. So Maximal Rattrap in the middle, Beast Machines on the right. And again, they're just inexplicably growing much larger each time. Don't know why. Now, some of you who watch Beast Wars might be looking at the Rattrap and thinking, well, didn't he have wheels for legs? And he did in the show, and the toy was designed in a way to where you could give him just the wheels for legs by like folding away the spikes, folding the legs up. But unfortunately, you need something to help support him on because he's just balancing on two wheels at that point. So I got his legs folded out for, purposes of headache reduction. So you can see kind of how the character's design changed over time. His transmetal form was really just an update to his standard look and kept many of the same design cues, especially the head. And then when they did Beast Machines, they just went nuts and created a character that looked nothing like his Beast Wars incarnation. Though to be fair, like pretty much all the Beast Machines characters look nothing like their Beast Wars forms. So yeah, there's definitely just kind of a big jumping the shark moment after the transmetal form. I will say, as excited as I am to get this new basic class toy, since I've been wanting it, since the actual days of Beast Wars, I still think that the transmetal one is just my favorite toy of him by far. It is just so cool. The colors are gorgeous. The design is really neat. It's got a lot of posability. Now, of course, that added posability comes with a larger size class, but, Also, don't let apologists for modern toys fool you into thinking that things like thigh swivel and bicep swivel are a new thing. They're not, as you can clearly see. This was a very posable little deluxe toy for its time. And that's going to wrap up our review of the new vintage Beast Wars Rattrap toy. Overall, I do like this toy. It's not perfect. I think the Beast mode outweighs the Robot mode in terms of, stability and quality. The Robot mode looks cool and it's very iconic, but that super heavy backpack and the fairly weak ball-jointed knees really hurt it. I'm actually just kind of holding my breath, hoping that it doesn't fall over as it's turning here. So that is something to take into consideration. It's not the most stable basic class toy out there. Despite what's supposed to be a small character, he's got a massive backpack and it's heavy too. So just something to be aware of. I love the weapon storage. I really want to see that come back in modern Transformers toys. Like, nothing beats good concealed accessories. Seeing a cheetah running around with like guns sticking off of it or something like that just looks ridiculous. And I really hope they can find a way to really hide those better, because for most of their Beast Wars toys, and especially like their G1 toys, they're really not doing it. Like, they're just slapping things on the vehicle mode or on the beast mode and calling it a day. So I want to see that practice go bye-bye. So yeah, he's probably not the best Rattrap toy out there. Again, for takes on the like regular Rattrap design, I'd personally recommend the Thrilling 30. It's not 100% screen accurate, but the beast mode is very accurate, and the robot mode just has a lot of gimmicks, tons of posability, very stable. I would get that one. However, if you do want to experience the original Rattrap toy and you don't already have a version of this, I'd recommend picking this up and really just getting it in hand and feeling the heft of this little guy for the first time. He is fun to play with. He's really neat. He's got a cool design. If you already have like the original or some version of that, you don't really need to get this guy, right? He changes enough to not feel like you're actually getting a reissue because the colors are changed, but he doesn't change enough to make it feel like you're getting a new toy either, right? He's very redundant in a Beast Wars collection that already has the old toy. So I would say, whether or not he's worth it to you really depends on whether or not you have some version of this. You also got to consider the cost, right? You're paying $22 for what was, in 1996, a $5 toy. So more than 4 times the cost. Yes, prices go up. Should they go up that much for this toy? I don't think so. I think it was just to make it easier for the stores to just have one price point on the shelf for him and Cheetor. You could see how well it went with the G1 vintage reissues where they had like all these different sizes, and each size needed its own price tag. And I get why that doesn't work in modern toy stores, or modern stores that sell toys. We don't have toy stores anymore in the U.S. But they're much more condensed toy sections. They don't have room to have all these different listings. So like I get it. I guess I hate it, but I get it. So if you can sink the cost and you don't already have a version of this, I think you'll enjoy picking him up. He is a nice representation of what Transformers toys were back in 1996. Of course, that's purely how I feel about Rattrap. Now I want to know what you all think of him. Do you like the toy? Do you dislike it? Do you think it's worth the added cost? How do you feel about the color changes? Are you okay with it? Do you not like it? Do you like it? Any and all feedback's always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed the review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the new vintage Beast Wars Transformers Rattrap. And with all that said, I will see you next time.